All right, we're about to dive into a real investigation here. A deep look into just one single controversial word from the original Hebrew Bible. And believe me, it's a word that has sparked centuries of debate, raising some huge questions about prophecy, language, and, well, the very nature of translation itself.
So the verse at the absolute heart of all this is from the Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. Now, in most English Bibles you pick up, it's going to say something like, "He is altogether lovely." But in the original Hebrew, the word translated as lovely is Machamad-im. And right there, that's where our mystery really begins.
And this gets us to the core question of this whole explainer. Is Machamad-im just a simple descriptive word, an adjective that means lovely or desirable? Or, and this is the big question, could it actually be a proper name, one that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time?
To really start unraveling this, we've got to start with the word itself. So let's break down its linguistic parts and see what clues we can dig up.
You see, the real key is in the root of the word. Machamad-im comes from the Semitic root HMD. Now in Hebrew, that root carries the meaning of praise, desire, and preciousness. But here's what's so incredible. That is the exact same root for the Arabic name Muhammad, which literally means the praised one. The linguistic link is, well, it's pretty hard to ignore. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This is the first and honestly the most common objection people bring up. In Hebrew, that im at the end almost always means it's plural, like cats or dogs. So Machamad-im has to mean lovely things, right? Case closed? Well, according to the source material we're looking at, it's not quite that simple.
And this is where we get to what the source material presents as its linguistic smoking gun, the key piece of evidence that they claim unlocks this entire puzzle.
So there's this concept we really need to get our heads around. It's called the Plural of Majesty. It's a really well-known feature in biblical Hebrew where you stick a plural ending on a singular noun. But you're not doing it to say there are many of them. No, you're doing it to show that the one thing is great. It's a way of showing respect, grandeur, and majesty. And you've probably heard the most famous example of this in the entire Bible, the word for God, Elohim. El is the singular root for God, but that im is added on. Now, scholars don't translate this as gods. They understand it's a plural of majesty. It means the one great God. This slide just lays it all out perfectly. The argument being made is that if we apply the exact same grammar rule consistently, the logic just follows, right? So if Elohim means the great God and not gods, then Machamad-im, when it's describing a single person, would mean the great praised one, not lovely things.
But hold on, the argument doesn't just stop with the grammar. The source insists that we have to look at the text around it for clues, and that's where we find a really startling numerical prophecy.
10,000. Now this isn't just some random number pulled out of a hat. According to the source, this is a specific identifier, one that points to a very unique event in history.
You see, right before our key verse, in verse 10, the very same person who's being described as Muhammad ha-Hadim is also called the chief among 10,000. So the text gives us both a name and a number to identify this great leader.
And this timeline is where it gets really wild. The text, written around 950 BCE, describes a great praised one who is the chief of 10,000. Then, you fast forward over 1,500 years, and historical records show the Prophet Muhammad entering Mecca to liberate it, leading an army of exactly 10,000 companions. So, how on earth can a book that most of us just think of as a simple love poem contain such specific prophetic details? Well, to understand that, we have to kind of shift how we look at the text itself. So on the one hand, you have the view we all know. The Song of Solomon is a literal, maybe even erotic, love poem. But the source material we're examining offers a totally different take, a mystical or Gnostic interpretation. This view says a text like this isn't just a love story. No, it's a deeply coded text about the qualities of what's known as the perfect man.
This all leads to what the source calls the signature theory. The idea is that the Bible we have today still has remnants of the original revelation. And in this view, Machamad-im isn't some mistake. It's a divine signature, a proper name that was intentionally left in the Hebrew, which later translators have basically smudged by turning it into a plain old adjective.
Now, of course, there are counter-arguments. A big one from scholars is that this word, or at least its root, is used in other places in the Bible for pleasant objects, like gold or palaces. But the source pushes back on this, and it all comes down to one thing: context. Sure, when it's describing an object, it means precious thing, But here, in Song of Solomon 5:16, it's the final grand description of a person, and that, they argue, changes everything. Okay, let's take a second here, pull all of these different threads together, and just summarize the entire argument we've walked through.
So let's just walk through that one more time, step by step. First, we have the name. The root, HMD, means the praised one. Step 2, the grammar. That plural of majesty suffix turns it into the great praised one. Step 3, the number. The text right next to it identifies this person as the chief of 10,000. And finally, step 4, the person. History provides a direct parallel with Prophet Muhammad's conquest of Mecca with 10,000 companions.
And so we end right back where we started. You've got a shared linguistic root, a specific grammatical rule, a precise number, and a direct historical event that seems to match. So is this just a mind-blowing series of coincidences? Or, as the source material argues, is it a divine signature hidden in plain sight all along? That is the mystery.